What's going on, you guys, and welcome back to Hashtag AskGSM here today for March 15th, 2017. Hope you guys are doing well. And every single Wednesday right here on the show, I, Graham GSM Matthews, answer your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So before we get started here, two shout-outs. One, today, March 15th, a perfect day to announce this. Today is the official day that Lucha Underground debuts on Netflix. Not, current episodes, not Season 3, which we are currently in the middle of. Doesn't return until, I think, March 31st. But every past season, Seasons 1 and Seasons 2, Seasons 1 and 2 are currently up on Netflix right now. Check them out. Season 3 has been good, but I still say the best shows of Lucha Underground came in Seasons 1 and 2, so check it out when you can. It's a great fucking show. And also, shout out number 2, I talked about it briefly last Thursday right here on the show on Hashtag AskGSM. This Thursday on Wrestle Rant Radio, tomorrow basically, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, the new Ring of Honor World Champion Christopher Daniels and the Ring of Honor COO Joe Koff will both be on the show to talk all about the 15th anniversary show that they put on last Friday. They're talking the legacy of Ring of Honor, moving forward, favorite moments, so on and so forth. Two great interviews. Had a blast talking on the article, the interviews. Are currently up an article for him right now on sportskita.com, the WWE section from last Friday. You can check it up on my website, nextairwrestling.net as well. But that's only a snippet of what you will hear from the new Ring of Honor World Champion Christopher Daniels and Joe Koff on Thursday on Wrestle Rant Radio. So check it out when you get the chance. So, before we get started here, if you want to send in a question, please be sure to do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment I put up on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not the wall itself. And also be sure to leave a question down below in the comment section. I'll be sure to include it in next week's edition. So let's get started here with Prince5835. His question was from YouTube. I just finished watching the Road to WrestleMania 21 on the network, and most matches on the card were already announced by late February, early March. Now, WWE has shown us the full card for WrestleMania, and it's only weeks away. Has not shown us, rather, the full card for WrestleMania, and it's only weeks away. What's taking them so long to announce the matches for WrestleMania? For one thing, there is something to be said to the fact that Raw just had a pay-per-view a week or two ago with Fastlane. So I don't think we've ever had a March pay-per-view that was not WrestleMania. So you got to take that into consideration for one thing. But even SmackDown doesn't have their shit together. AJ Styles and Shane McMahon, I know it was teased last night on SmackDown, but it's still not yet official for the show. So, I'm sure it will be announced next week, if not on social media in the week since then. I thought they might announce it on Talking Smack. They didn't. So, and that's only the second to last. That's the penultimate episode of SmackDown before WrestleMania. And Raw isn't perfect either. I think as of right now, we already have 10 confirmed matches for the show. American Alpha and the Usos, we just saw on SmackDown last night. Yet that, I'm sure a rematch will take place in Mania, but that has yet to be announced. So, yeah, it's not even the brand split thing, because we had the brand split thing going on back then as well. I also got to agree, I do appreciate when they set the matches in stone well in advance. SmackDown doing the shit with the number one contenders matches for 3 straight weeks was kind of ridiculous. And Raw was really no better. I know Brock Lesnar and Goldberg, I think, was the first match set in stone for WrestleMania about a month ago. But other than that, Jericho and Owens was not made official until the night after Fastlane. The tag title match was made official last night, so Raw is no better at the moment. But yeah, no, I really wish they would announce the card well in advance as opposed to waiting until the last minute. His second question, do you think WWE should get rid of the February pay-per-view, or the Fastlane February pay-per-view, and instead just build for WrestleMania? Yes, I've been saying this for years, that the February pay-per-views, at least in the past decade or so, have been completely fucking meaningless. Absolutely useless. The last really good February pay-per-view, with the exception of Elimination Chamber a couple weeks ago, last month, whatever, with the exception of that show, I think the best pay-per-view that we've had in the month of February, Elimination Chamber 2011 was also really, really good. But other than that, I could not think of one strong February pay-per-view. And even that February 2011 Elimination Chamber event from 6 years ago, Edge retaining his title was really, really predictable. You had a tag title change. Who the fuck cared? You had, what else was on that show? I know the world title kicked off the show. You had a WWE title number one contenders match with Cena winning predictably. You had Miz versus Jerry Lawler, a good match, but it's not a blockbuster bout by any means for the WWE title. So a lot of these shows are really, really, really pointless. I feel like they just paint themselves into a corner and, oh, we have to do a show between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. No, you don't. You don't. There were a lot of fantastic February shows back in 2000, 2001, and 2002 with the No Way Out pay-per-views. All of them were absolutely amazing. Ever since then, though, they have largely not served a purpose. I know they're supposed to build to WrestleMania, but by that point, they already know what's happening at WrestleMania. We already know what's happening at WrestleMania. So it doesn't really serve a purpose. And if you want to do a title change, you could do it on SmackDown. I feel like it would just make the episodes of Raw and SmackDown mean more if you just did like a mini pay-per-view edition of Raw or SmackDown in the weeks leading up to WrestleMania. That's what SmackDown did before the Rumble. Their last SmackDown of 2016 was lit. It was phenomenal. No pun intended. It was great. And they didn't have a pay-per-view between TLC and the Rumble, which was almost 9 weeks, in between the time difference, the time span between TLC and the Rumble. They should do more of that stuff in the future. So I got to agree. The Fastlane pay-per-view, even Elimination Chamber, I feel like would just be better brought back at random times when it's necessary, as opposed to, it's, February, time to do an Elimination Chamber. Next question. Who had your favorite wrestling attires? I think I answered this a couple weeks ago, but AJ Styles, I think currently has got to be my favorite, attires currently. Macho Man, in retrospect, obviously, I was not a fan from when he was around. Regal, not the attire itself, but like the robes that he would wear to the ring, the purple one, the black one, black and gold, purple gold, I thought were always awesome. That's about it. I'm sure there's others, but AJ Styles currently has got to be my favorite gear in WWE currently, just at the moment, just because it's so cool. And the color schemes, he switches it up every now and again. I really enjoy AJ Styles' attire currently. Mitch G, also from YouTube, his question was, have you heard of the stable Monster Common Rangers for the promotion Hustle? Supposedly they're evil clones to a face stable on the promotion, and even kidnapped a member of that stable and forced them to turn to the dark side via mind control, and defeated them via a few times, being ultimately defeated, and then the kidnapped wrestler turned face again. I feel that this is one of the coolest, amazingly booked stables, and I've never heard of until now, and I've never even seen the promotion. This supposedly happened in February of 2006. No, I've never heard of that. It sounds awesome, though. And it sounds a lot like something that you would read or, see in a comic book or, a comic book world-esque universe like the Avengers or something. And as silly as that might sound, that's typically, in my opinion, where like the best, wrestling-driven storylines come from. Is comic books. Not, word for word, not storyline for storyline, but when they are, inspired by comic book-esque storylines, stuff like that is, like, really, really cool. If done right, anyway. Like, if they did that in WWE, it would be stupid. That they would use, like, the hocus-pocus bullshit. It just doesn't work for WWE in 2017. In the current year, it doesn't work. They tried it they still try it with Bray Wyatt, the hocus-pocus, and it's dumb. It just doesn't work. However, one promotion that would do something like that, which they're kind of doing currently, they haven't aired a new episode in a couple months, so I don't know if I'm forgetting something, but I know they were doing something similar to that with Drago and Lucha Underground just recently. And their universe is so over the top, it's so crazy that them doing something similar to that would fit perfectly. That's why Lucha Underground is so great in my opinion. So that's why you need to go back and check out seasons 1 and 2 right now on Netflix. But that does sound pretty cool. I might have to read more up on that, after I'm done filming this. How early and how often should a rival character win fairly to justify being perceived as an equal to the person they oppose, in your opinion? Something has to be said for 50-50 booking. Having one guy win, and then the other guy win, helps nobody. In some situations, it's fine. Like, if you want to do it on pay-per-view, one guy wins one match, the second guy wins the next. I get that, but like having one guy win a match on pay-per-view and then have the other guy get their win back like the next night on Raw, to me is just dumb. That's dumb, stupid booking that helps nobody. So I'm not a fan of that. And I really hope they would move past the 50-50 booking because it helps nobody. Nobody gets over in that instance. But when you have a classic story, like when Styles finally lost to Cena at the Royal Rumble, I mean, you knew Cena was winning for the most part. It was not predictable, but you knew it was bound to happen. But I really was not all that mad, just because AJ, the story there was so well done. With Styles beating Cena the first time via interference from the club, and then Styles lost to Cena in tag team action at Battleground, but then he beat him cleanly at both SummerSlam 1-on-1 and in No Mercy in a triple threat situation. And the booking there I thought was great. The story they told was stellar. It was fucking phenomenal. Again, no pun intended. But yeah, no, I think having a babyface cleanly go over the heel at first, I'm not a fan of that, just because I think it just kind of ruins the story. And I mean, there are some cases where you could have a babyface win cleanly and still continue the feud, but it kind of ruins the story just because now the heel, they've already been conquered, so who the hell cares? The babyface already got their clean win, so it shouldn't happen all too often. I'm more of a fan of the approach where the babyface has to fight from behind, and they lose a couple matches before finally getting that big win when it matters most. That's the approach I'm a fan of, and I wish they would do that more often. You can't do that with everyone, but I think, the less is more with stuff like that. Captain Sunshine, also from YouTube, why was Mick Foley being forced to fire one such a big deal? Like, just look at Titus O'Neil. Do you know of anyone that would lose sleep if Titus does not appear on Raw anymore? But Mick Foley's such a good guy. He doesn't want to fire anyone. I do agree it was a dumb angle. I don't know why they would not have advertised that in advance. I wish they would have done something to set that up last week. And they write the shows week to week, so I don't know if they could have done that. I don't know if that would have been possible, but that was the biggest storyline coming out of this week's show, and it led to an amazing angle in the main event with Foley and Triple H and Stephanie, and most importantly, Seth Rollins. You would think that they would have advertised that in advance. I guess not. But, yeah, no, that's what I was thinking, too. Like, why not just fire fucking, like, Bo Dallas or something, or Sin Cara, someone who does not appear on the show anymore, so who the fuck would care? No one would lose sleep. Mick Foley might, because he doesn't want to fire anyone, but that to me was kind of dumb, too. But, yeah, Mick Foley's such a good guy. I mean, if he was a Raw GM, if he was a heel Raw GM, it wouldn't have mattered, but because he's Mick Foley, it bothered him. I don't know. Elena the Y, also from YouTube, watching the ending to Raw, speaking of which, watching the ending to Raw with Triple H beating up Seth Rollins' knee and using an Indian Deathlock, and I don't know, I could have done without Raw pulling a WCW and cutting off one of the babyface's number one moment of triumph before the broadcast even got to an end, where Triple H and Stephanie being the most frustrating versions of themselves by needing to look like the coolest and baddest people on the show. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing, but did you think it was a good idea for Raw to end like that? Initially I was not disappointed. I was like, oh, you couldn't have had Seth have his moment? Like, really? But at the same time, I was thinking after it was over, I'm thinking, okay, for one thing, that was very well done. So regardless of what you thought, what your thoughts and what might have happened, you got to agree that the way that it was set up, the brawl itself, was really well done, and the best thing that we've seen, one of the better endings to the Raw in recent memory, in my opinion. But that being said, I thought Triple H getting the better of Seth Rollins on the show, at first, again, I wasn't too thrilled, but then thinking, about it again, I was thinking to myself, Seth Rollins, if and when he eventually gets his revenge on Triple H, whether it be at WrestleMania or at another point, again, like I said earlier, it's going to mean that much more now. Now that Triple H has gotten the better of him, time and time again, he's dressed him down in the middle of the ring. He's attacked him. He has now further injured his injured knee, his beaten up knee. So I was fine with it. I mean, again, it was Rollins' moment. But once Rollins, I think, a lot of people picked up on it. I did not pick up on it initially. But it looked like Seth Rollins was going for the curb stomp. And they don't usually tease moves that they ban. They don't tease moves that they'll ban. So I thought that was interesting, so maybe they'll bring that move back. I know the whole reason they banned it in the first place was because of concussion issues. And reportedly, years ago they banned the punt kick from Randy Orton back in 2011, 2012. And he's brought it back on occasion since then, in the past couple of years. So it's not completely out of the ordinary for Seth Rollins to do the same with the curb stomp because, he's never hurt anyone with it, as far as I know. Same with Orton in the punt kick, so we could see a situation similar to that where he brings back the move for one night only at WrestleMania. The place would fucking lose their minds. I would lose my mind being there. So, No, yeah, the ending itself I was fine with. I thought Triple H getting the better of Rollins was fine, just to set up the story that, Rollins is constantly fighting from underneath. He's hurt, he's injured, he can't beat the Authority, but when he eventually does overcome the Authority, again, it'll mean that much more. Brandon A., also from YouTube's got a couple questions here. First one being, I don't watch Ring of Honor, TNA, or any other indie promotion. I watch the last two Wrestle Kingdoms and occasionally Lucha Underground. I would love to watch more of these promotions, but I simply feel there is not enough time in the day. I completely agree. So I think every week, I ask you a question regarding some wrestlers or tag teams in these promotions to gain more information about them. With that being said, last week you mentioned the tag team The Addiction recently splitting up. Can you tell me about their background, what their gimmick was, how good they were, and just any general information you think I should know about them and about their characters? Also, why did they split up recently? I'm glad you asked about The Addiction. That is Christopher Daniels and Kazarian. If you don't watch TNA or watch Ring of Honor, I'd be surprised if you haven't heard about them through the grapevine of the wrestling world, the IWC, whatever. Just because Daniels has always been a Ring of Honor guy on and off. Kazarian was more of a TNA guy for many, many years. And Daniels was in TNA for a while, too. I think a lot of people know them from their TNA stints. But, yeah, they've been a tag team for the past 5 years or so. They've been best friends. They've been really good friends for a long time, well before that. But they started teaming on TV in TNA about 5 years ago as Bad Influence in TNA, later on known as The Addiction in Ring of Honor. And coming to Ring of Honor a couple years back, they quickly won the Ring of Honor tag titles together, becoming two-time Ring of Honor tag team champions. They dropped the belts at the All-Star Extravaganza show that I was at in late September of last year. So Christopher Daniels and Kazarian are both, seasoned veterans in the business. They've been around for a long-ass time. Daniels has been wrestling since, I think, 93. See, he's been here for a long-ass time, almost 25 years in the making. Was his World Championship win last Friday. Spoiler alert. And I said at the start of the show, so it's not really a spoiler. But, he won his first World Championship ever at the Ring of Honor's 15th anniversary show on Friday. And the reason that's so cool is because he's been wrestling for so long. He's a great wrestler. His character, it's hard to explain characters in Ring of Honor just because they don't really have characters per se. Like Dalton Castle is a very flamboyant guy, so he's kind of the exception. But a lot of them are wrestling based. But Daniels, he's the fallen angel. It's or at least it used to be a very religious gimmick, but in recent years they've been kind of a bit more goofy. Not really recently, because Daniels has had his sights set on winning that world title for the last couple months. So he's kind of been more serious in the ring along with Kazarian. But they would come out every Thursday, do Throwback Thursday, wear all these silly outfits like general outfits. They would wear outfits that would portray them as people out of the fucking I don't know the old school movies. What do you call them? The movie with Mel Gibson, Braveheart. They would wear Braveheart costumes, all this other shit in TNA. They didn't really do that all that much in Ring of Honor, but they are entirely creative guys, really, really cool dudes, great wrestlers, and just kind of having fun with everything they do. And they're always one step ahead rather of their competition. And that was the case last Friday at the pay-per-view when Daniels, like I said, they recently split up, but that was about a week ago. So today's Wednesday. So last Wednesday on Ring of Honor TV, Kazarian turned on Daniels and joined the Bullet Club. And I'm thinking, wow, that's really, really odd timing. Why would they do that before the pay-per-view, not at the pay-per-view? That's really strange. So then at the show itself, Kazarian comes down to help out Adam Cole, who's also a fellow member of the Bullet Club. And you can watch this all for yourself at the 15th anniversary show. Again, I strongly recommend it. It's a great fucking show. One of the best overall pay-per-view events I've seen in some time. But anyway, so Kazarian comes down to help out Adam Cole. And before Kazarian hits Daniels with the championship belt while the referee is down, he drops the belt, rips off a shirt. It's an Addiction shirt. It's a Christopher Daniels shirt. And he flips off Adam Cole. It was revealed that it was a ruse the entire time. Daniels hits the BME, the best moonsault ever on Adam Cole. 3 straight times, and we've got a new Ring of Honor World Champion. Again, the story was so well done. It was a great swerve. They don't do interference all that much in the Ring of Honor pay-per-view main events, but this was an excellent exception just because it worked so well. It took me off guard. It took a lot of people off guard. It was really well done and perfectly in line with what Daniels and Kazarian would do normally with their characters. So, yeah, those two I think are a great example of two guys in Ring of Honor that do have characters. They're silly, they're goofy, but when the bell rings, when it's time to go, they're serious. They're in full, determination mode to win the matchup, and they're just two seasoned vets that are just a lot of fun to watch. So, check out Daniels, check out Kazarian, and as I said earlier, another cheap plug, check out my exclusive interview with Daniels, the all-new Ring of Honor World Champion, tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio. His second question, WrestleMania has recently been criticized for being too long, having too many matches / trying to get everyone on the card, and having a battle royal that means nothing. I love the 2 Wrestle Kingdoms that I watched, but they all have the same thing. The last Wrestle Kingdom had about 11 matches, went over 5 hours, and had many multi-man tag team matches. Why the double standard? Is it just because it is the cool thing to be pissed at WWE? You know what? That's a great question. I've kind of picked up on that too. I don't watch the Japanese wrestling scene. I'm not saying it's not good. It's actually quite great. But like you said, I do not watch New Japan. I just don't have enough time. I watch, as it is, WWE, Lucha Underground, Ring of Honor, TNA, for now, and some other stuff too, like in addition to all the other pay-per-views and all the other shit I watch in the network that I watch for the YouTube shows, WWE Network and Chill and Wrestle Rant, all that other shit. So anyway, with WrestleMania, Wrestle Kingdom, you were absolutely right. Wrestle Kingdom is the WrestleMania, obviously, but a lot of the things they do mirror WrestleMania, the shows being very, very long. Now, Wrestle Kingdoms don't tend to drag as much as WrestleManias do, but that is no excuse. I mean, with the Battle Royals and trying to get everyone on the card, they do the exact same thing. And I'm also one of those people that's critical of WrestleMania for doing that and getting everyone on the card. It should really mean something to wrestle on the show. If you're not on the show, you're not on the fucking show. You know what I mean? You don't have to be squeezed into a fucking 8-man ladder intercontinental this multi-man match for the belt. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like you really have to earn your spot at WrestleMania and not be competing on main event every single week for a year and then expect to get a prominent match on the main card. That to me never really made any sense. I've never said anything about Wrestle Kingdom just because I don't watch the show, but it does seem like that there is absolutely a double standard among fans that watch Japanese wrestling or Wrestle Kingdom, whatever, that, oh my god, it's the absolute perfect show. And I heard, it was a great show this year. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, you can't criticize WrestleMania, the WWE, for doing one thing and getting everyone on the card and not do it for the other. So I wish, Wrestle Kingdom, New Japan Pro Wrestling would not do that either. But I don't watch their shows. I watched Wrestle Kingdom 9 2 years ago, and that was about it. I watched the main event of this year's show. I watched Okada and Omega in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom 11 this year, but that was about it. I didn't watch the whole show. I just don't have time, like you said. But yeah, you can't criticize one and not the other because they do a lot of the same stuff when it comes to their biggest show of the year. Justin G from Facebook has got a couple questions here again. His first question was, I am one of many fans of the Bullet Club and probably the biggest fan of the Guerrillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga and Tongalawa, I don't know how you pronounce that. Do you think that they should come into the WWE and be put together with Roman Reigns since they look together and they look alike and they have heritage, Samoan heritage? No. I think, not to say they shouldn't come to WWE eventually, but you look at the club, and I know they're the current Raw Tag Team Champions, but they are not being used the way they should be. These guys, they're losers. They were losers before they won the belts, and they're losers now that they've won the belts. Getting jobbed out to Roman Reigns in handicap matches, come on, that's ridiculous. Losing to fucking Enzo and Cass, and it's like, they're losers. They're losers. They were used pretty properly at first, but then they got into the whole feud of the Usos, and they lost a million times, and they literally had no direction on Raw. So, I think they're a prominent example. Not to say that the club should leave WWE, and they're being used all right. I think it could be worse with them not being on the shows at all. But, if they're not using those two guys right, and they're way bigger stars than Tama Tonga and Tongalo, and the Guerrillas of Destiny, as you called them, then I really don't think there's much hope for those two. I mean, being put with Roman Reigns, we saw how that worked out for the Usos, so unless it's a heel stable, and it wouldn't make much sense, I still think Usos and Roman Reigns would be a great fucking stable once Roman hopefully eventually goes heel. The Usos are heel, and they're awesome. So Roman would have to be a heel in order for that to work. If they were baby faces, they would die a death in 5 minutes and being paired with Roman Reigns, the single most hated guy in the roster right now, I would say. Justin's second question. So far, I feel Cody Rhodes in the Bullet Club has been by far the worst thing I've seen on the indie scene. Cody Rhodes does not acknowledge that he's a part of the Bullet Club during Wrestle Kingdom, and even on Impact Wrestling besides Moose mentioning it. What are your thoughts on Rhodes in the Bullet Club thus far? I'm a fan of it. The fact that he doesn't mention it doesn't really bother me. It's really interesting to see the crossover that Rhodes has done. First of all, competing for like 3 different companies at the same time, from New Japan to TNA to Ring of Honor and the Indies, is almost unheard of. Like simultaneously doing all that shit is almost unheard of. Competing at WrestleMania, he didn't wrestle there, but at Bound for Glory, Final Battle, and Wrestle Kingdom, unprecedented and absolutely incredible. That is amazing. That being said, though, with Cody Rhodes and the Bullet Club, I think he's the perfect fit. And again, the crossover that I mentioned, I think it's so fucking cool that when he left WWE, you knew he was going to be cheered off the bat, so he was a babyface for a couple of months, and then he turned heel at Final Battle, the Ring of Honor show back in December, the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. And then once he turned heel there, he turned heel everywhere else. Like, he was in TNA before Ring of Honor, and then when he came back to TNA after turning heel in Ring of Honor, he was a heel there too. At the start of 2017, now he's a heel in TNA. And it was a month after he turned heel in Ring of Honor that he went over to New Japan, and he joined the Bullet Club. And again, I think Cody Rhodes, I just love the pairing because him and Adam Cole, especially out of that core group of the Bullet Club, are perfect members. I mean, you could say what you want about the Bullet Club and the fact that they're not what they once were, and that's absolutely true, in my opinion. They're still a very hot group, and to break them up now I think would be foolish. They're still selling merch. They're still popular. At the same time, though, they're not what they once were with, the club leaving, AJ leaving, Balor leaving. That was well before they got popular, but you know what I mean. So, that being said, and I think Adam Cole might be on his way out now, too. Now that he's lost the Ring of Honor World Championship, they could blame him for getting Kazarian into the group, and they cost, Adam Page, I know, is in the Bullet Club, too. That's a fun addition. I don't really mind that because he's a really good guy, too. He's a really good wrestler. But Cody Rhodes, he has the look, a lot like Adam Page, and especially a lot like Adam Cole. They have the look of superstars that they're better than you. They look like superstars. And they wear the suits, and they don't feel out of place at all. And turning heel for Cody Rhodes was the best thing that could have happened to him on the indie scene. Again, he was a babyface at first, he was popular, but you knew that was going to run out eventually, and it was starting to run out by the time that he turned heel, so I'm glad he turned heel when he did, 3.5 months ago. But, with Cody Rhodes, I think he is, in my opinion, you may not feel the same way, but I think he's a great fit for the Bullet Club. Excuse me, I voice correct there, but no, I think he's been a great fit for the Bullet Club thus far. I think, he's got the look. He feels like he's having fun every time I see him in the ring with the Bullet Club or in TNA. He did mention, I know you said Moose mentioned it, but he didn't acknowledge it outright. And why would he? I mean, really, think about it. I mean, why would he acknowledge he's in the Bullet Club and TNA? They don't own the Bullet Club. The Bullet Club is not in TNA. No members of the Bullet Club are in TNA. So the fact they didn't bring it up on TNA TV doesn't matter at all, because they have nobody from the Bullet Club. If anything, they lost the Bullet Club when the deal that AJ and Gallows and Anderson reportedly not signed, but the deal that they had with TNA to come back in at the onset of 2016 fell through, and they went to WWE instead. I don't know why they wouldn't want anything to do with the Bullet Club, but Rhodes did subtly mention it on, I think, last week's show, or maybe the week before, when he put a gun, as a hand gesture, a gun gesture to the head of Moose. So that was a way of acknowledging it, so that was pretty cool. So, yeah, no, I think Rhodes in the Bullet Club has been a huge success so far, and especially rejuvenating the Cody Rhodes character. Mark S. has got a number of questions here from Facebook. First one being, have Goldberg and The Undertaker ever met in singles competition? And could it be a good option for a Universal title match? No and no. The only 2 times they've ever encountered each other was the go-home show for the Royal Rumble and the Royal Rumble match itself that Sunday when Goldberg got tossed out by Taker, and that was it. It would have been a good match 10 years ago when Goldberg was originally in WWE. Now, not so much. It might be cool for like a nostalgia purpose. Like I know I can't really say, I can't shit on Goldberg Taker and then say, oh, I want to see Sting Taker. I mean, but I think Sting Taker, is a way bigger dream match than Taker Goldberg. I think that ship has sailed. But no, not at all. I think Goldberg, if he's going to have a full-length match, and he's not going to, maybe at WrestleMania with Lesnar, I'd be shocked if it went past 5 minutes, but Taker and Goldberg would not have a compelling 10-minute, even a 10-minute match. Taker and Shane had that match last year at WrestleMania that was almost a half an hour long, and it sucked. It was not good. And Shane's older, too, and he's in way better shape than Goldberg is. So and that would not be a good option. That would not be a good idea at all, in my opinion. His second question, has there ever been a tag team steel cage match? And if there has been, was it any good? The only two I could think of was the Hardy Boys and the New Age Outlaws. I'm sure there's been more. In WWE, anyway. I'm sure there's been others. I know there's been others in other promotions. But these are the two that came to mind in WWE. One that the Hardy Boys had with the New Age Outlaws on SmackDown, like years and years and years ago, like early 2000s. I never saw it, I just know that it happened. So it probably was good. I mean, it's the Outlaws and the Hardys. Can't get much better than that in terms of popularity. One in recent memory, I know they did one on Raw at the onset of 2014 with the Wyatt family, with Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan versus the Usos. And it was a pretty good match. That was the night that Daniel Bryan, after the match was over anyway, that Daniel Bryan went atop the cage and did the massive yes chant, and he betrayed the Wyatt family, and the place went fucking nuts. That was that show. So I mean, that was a pretty good match. So other than that, though, I don't think we've had many, if any, tag team steel cage matches in recent years. His next question, would a Hell in a Cell stipulation be a good or bad one in theory for a Seth Rollins Triple H match at WrestleMania? It's not that it's a bad idea, it's not necessary. Like, if anything, a street fight would be perfect for these two. Hell in a Cell, we just saw one last year WrestleMania with Shane and Taker, and it sucked. We saw one 5 years ago in Florida at WrestleMania between Triple H and The Undertaker, and we just saw 3. And I was there. We saw 3 at the Hell in a Cell event 5 months ago. And none of them were, I mean, the Owens-Rollins one was pretty good. Rusev and Reigns was pretty good, but they weren't, like, amazing to the point where, like, they needed to be inside Hell in a Cell. And I don't think this match needs to be inside Hell in a Cell either. Maybe if they have a rematch down the line, hey, maybe if they do a rematch of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view later this year, they could do it then. But for WrestleMania, I just don't think it's necessary at all. Next question. Any of these scenarios interest you in regards to how Samoa Joe is involved at WrestleMania, or how would you book him? 1. Samoa Joe versus Sami Zayn in a no disqualification match. 2. Samoa Joe versus Finn Balor in a number 1 contenders match for the Universal Championship, with both men possibly getting involved in a future title match. Or 3. Samoa Joe and possibly someone else getting involved in the U.S. Championship match between Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens. So for the first option, that's what I would want to say. Joe and Zayn. I don't even know if you need the no DQ stipulation. I don't think I wouldn't mind it. I'd be fine with it though. Yeah, Joe and Zayn is the path that I would go. I don't know if they'll do it. They already have literally 14, 15 matches already currently slated for WrestleMania. No joke. And what hasn't been confirmed yet soon will be. So I'm sure Joe versus Zayn will be added. Or you could do the other option you mentioned, putting them in the U.S. title match. Now, I do think it should be Jericho Owens one-on-one. But if you want to save that for Payback, because they all 4 men have been interacting with each other in the past couple weeks. So it wouldn't be random. And you can also save Jericho Owens for the Fastlane or the Payback pay-per-view, the Raw show after WrestleMania, which might be Jericho's final pay-per-view before he leaves for a little while to tour with Fozzy and whatnot. Reportedly, anyway. But I think it should be Jericho Owens one-on-one, just because they've already announced it. That's the real match right there that people have wanted to see. So I'd rather they keep it one-on-one and make Joe versus Zayn its own match as well. And Joe and Balor, I talked about last week. It's just, it would be we literally have 2 Raws left. Balor would have to come back. Oh, Joe Balor this Sunday, without any build-up. I know they have history, but It's not even worth it at this point. I know people really, really, really want Balor to be a part of WrestleMania, and he can be. He can return at WrestleMania, or I still say he'll come back the night after, but he doesn't need to wrestle at this point. To put him in the Battle Royal would be a waste. I'd rather just have him come back in a non-wrestling role at this point at the show, because we have fucking 2 weeks left until WrestleMania. I mean, hell, AJ and Shane has been not yet made official, but at least the story makes sense. They've been building to that forever now. So I'm fine with them not having Balor wrestle. I mean, it's way too late at this point. At V4 Volkner, his question was, do you think Emma would have thrived more on SmackDown Live than on Raw? Without question, absolutely. I mean, at least on SmackDown, she would have been seen. On Raw, how can you really say that she has thrived, or, not thrived, rather, when she's not even on the fucking show? Emma has not wrestled a televised match since May of 2016, 10 months ago. That is ridiculous. For a woman that is so good in the ring and her character's great, they wasted so much time in the fucking Emelina shit that went absolutely nowhere. What's the point? It's not like she's hurt. She hasn't been hurt for like 8 months. They are literally wasting this girl away. So yes, she would have way been a bigger, benefit, or a bigger, star on SmackDown, because at least they use all other women. And even Maria, I know she hasn't been on TV in like a fucking 8 months either, but at least she got to spend in it. She's doing other shit, so she has an excuse as to why she's not there if she's not been fired yet. But who I do think will be back at WrestleMania. I would not be shocked if Eva came back at Mania. But at least Emma would have been on that show and competing, whereas on Raw, she's literally just sitting at home doing nothing. Doing nothing. It's ridiculous. Their next question, Nakamura, Asuka, Revival, DIY. Who should be on which brand and why? Nakamura, I saw this morning, was not on the NXT poster for the England tour, the UK tour they're doing in June. And it's only inevitable. I'm going to be writing, someone else asked the question about this. Actually, I'll get to the next question. At Hammer Liverpool, sorry if I mispronounced that. I personally would book Shinsuke Nakamura on SmackDown Live in a feud with WWE Champion with, if AJ Styles was to win back the belt, I guess. In a feud with AJ Styles, how would you book him on the main roster? So to couple both questions in one, from Nakamura anyway, I'll be talking all about that tomorrow in an all-new article for Bleacher Report, but basically to sum it up, or just to give you a sneak preview of what I would do with Nakamura on the main roster, one, I would have him debut on the SmackDown after Mania. That's what I would do. In terms of how I would use him, putting him in a top-tier feud or a storyline with AJ Styles would be great after the feud with Shane runs its course. You could do a match between, I don't know. You could do him and Baron Corbin will be IC champion by that point. It's not really necessary off the bat. Him and Wyatt for the championship, that'd be pretty interesting. I think Nakamura should be a top-tier star from day one. Him and Miz wouldn't be bad, because Miz has been way more relevant recently. He's been fucking killing it and talking smack. So yeah, I would put Nakamura on SmackDown. Asuka, I would put her on Raw. I think SmackDown's women's division is pretty much set. I mean, they're making good use of all the women they have right now. They have Carmella, Natalya, Becky Lynch, Alexa Bliss, Mickie James. Naomi should be back in the next month or so, hopefully. And they have Eva if they want to bring her back too. So I think SmackDown is set. They don't really need any more women. Not that they don't need any more women, but I think they're using every woman really, really well. And Nikki Bella too. So you really have a star-studded women's roster there. It's really not necessary to bring in another woman. Whereas Raw, rather, it's not that SmackDown doesn't need the help, it's that Raw desperately does. Like, you have fucking Bayley, Charlotte, and Sasha. And that's it. That's it. I mean, you have Nia Jax, who's not nearly ready for any marquee match whatsoever. Dana Brooke sucks. I know they just turned her face this past week, but she sucks. Alicia Fox is an afterthought. Emma, they're not even using. Summer Rae is apparently still hurt. Paige is still hurt. They're really, plagued with injuries and all this other shit right now. It's really frustrating, but, yeah, no, Raw's women's division needs all the help it can get. So I would put Asuka on Raw. You gotta split up DIY and Revival. I mean, I know that you could always do their feud again on the main roster, and you could do that again at some point, but they're still feuding now. So to bring them both up at the same time, none of these guys are going to come up at the same time. Nakamura, I think, is pretty much a lock for after WrestleMania. Asuka, Maybe not. I could see them holding off on Asuka until after she gets her rematch at the next TakeOver. Revival's got to be a lock. I know TM61 is hurt, and they probably would have called it Revival like after the Rumble had they not gotten hurt, but, at this point, just fucking call them up. If they don't win back the belts in Orlando, and they shouldn't, just call them up. There's really no purpose to keep them down in NXT at this point. If they lose again in Orlando, and they should, they got to be called up. So that being said, I would put Revival on SmackDown, and I would put DIY on Raw, just because with DIY, and I know the cruiserweights are like exclusive to themselves, and they don't really mingle with the other superstars in the roster, but they should be able to. DIY is a great tag team, and Raw's tag team division needs all the help it can get. SmackDown too, but Gargano and Ciampa can also compete simultaneously in the cruiserweight division because they were a part of the division in the CWC. They were actually advertised for the division on Raw back in September when they were promoting it for its debut and Raw in September. And they didn't show up because plans changed. They kept them down in NXT. They won the tag titles, so it never came to be, thankfully. At least not yet, anyway, because their run in NXT has been fucking phenomenal. To call them up anytime soon would be foolish. But I mean, I guess you could call them up after WrestleMania, but I think Revival is more in need of a call-up than those guys. So I would put Revival on SmackDown, do a little feud of them in American Alpha if you want, a rekindling of that rivalry. And on Raw, DIY can, feud with the Club. They would have amazing matches, I think. And DIY can also have matches with Akira Tozawa and Austin Aries and Brian Kendrick and all those other guys as part of the Cruiserweight division. I already answered the next question about Nakamura. At the Average Grunt from Twitter as well. Out of all the matches announced so far, which match do you think will be pushed back to the WrestleMania kickoff? And they're going to push back at least 3. So the Raw Tag Team probably pretty much confirmed. Either Raw Tag Team, I could see the SmackDown Tag Team match being pushed to kickoff. I mean, I could see the Raw Tag Team match on the card and not the SmackDown one. Just because, at least for as poorly as the Raw Tag Team title feud between the Club, Enzo and Cass, and Cesaro and Sheamus has been built up, at least they've been, on TV every week. SmackDown, literally American Alpha, has not been on the show prior to this past week in like 3 fucking weeks. So really, that's kind of ridiculous. So if anything, the SmackDown Tag Team match should be bumped to the kickoff show. I would not be shocked if the Raw Tag Team match also got bumped to the kickoff show. The SmackDown Women's match, I mean, I would really love to see 2 women's matches a part of WrestleMania on the main card this year. I was fine with the Total Divas match last year, the 10-woman tag team match being bumped to the kickoff show. The SmackDown Women's match, though, the SmackDown Women's title match, rather, has way more importance than that match did. So I would put that on the main card. They're going to put the Raw Women's match on the main card, so that's not even a question. And then if we needed to put another match on the kickoff show, and you probably might have to because it's going to be like a fucking, a 15-match card altogether, the Battle Royal, who cares? Just put it on the kickoff show if you need to. His second question, non-wrestling question. What is your favorite animal? Good question. Dog, easily. I love dogs. And the funny thing is, I was never a big dog guy for a long time until we got a dog ourselves. We never had a dog before prior to my 6th grade middle school year. Prior to 2006, I had never had a dog before. So when we first got a dog, it was a black lab. And it was the greatest dog ever. Loved dogs from that point forward. Fortunately, it passed away 3 years later due to lymphoma or something, so that was unfortunate. But yeah, I'm a huge dog guy. I'm a sucker for a cute dog, so gotta go. That is my favorite animal. What is the worst WWE pay-per-view theme? Worst, rather, you put worst, but worst WWE pay-per-view theme you have ever heard? It's hard to say. There's been a lot of bad ones, a lot of forgettable ones. So I can't really say. No one song jumps out as being oh my god, that was awful. I will say this, though. Any song that's rap, for the most part, I'm not a fan of. Except for Flo Rida. I know there's a lot of hate for Flo Rida. Sometimes rightfully so. But for whatever reason, I've really come around to like his music that he's done for the WWE pay-per-views in recent years. Wild Ones, WrestleMania 28, I thoroughly enjoyed. Greenlight this year, I enjoy. My House last year, I liked. Going Down for Real, SummerSlam 2014, I liked. The song Who's With Me the song he did for SummerSlam last year, I liked. So a lot of good Flo Rida songs, I would say. So I don't really mind his songs. Kid Ink, I don't know if they're the worst. I'm just not really a huge fan. I can name off a lot of great pay-per-view theme songs. The bad ones I just don't even think about. But yeah, basically anything that's rap. I know they used like an Imagine Dragons song for Survivor Series a couple years ago. I think 2015. Wasn't a fan of that song. It wasn't bad. Just didn't really fit, the pay-per-view. But they also used Monster for WrestleMania 30, so it's not like they're the band's the problem. So yeah, like Kid Ink, just not a fan. Just Money in the Power, I think he used at 31 or 32 or something. Yeah, I just was not a fan of that song, or the fact that, I'm not a Kid Ink fan, so that's really least favorite. I wouldn't call it the worst. There's been a lot of bad ones, but a lot of those bad ones I just would rather forget, so I can't name them off right here. But I will say, I'll just offer a blanket statement and say, really any rap music, with the exception of Flo Rida, I don't like at WrestleMania. And at the Wrestle Guy has got two questions here. First one being, what are your thoughts so far in the build to WrestleMania 33? Better than last year or somewhat lackluster? That's a good question. I would kind of put it on the same level as last year. I mean, I can't say, is my hype level different from last year, because I'll be there this year. So obviously I'm way more excited for 33 than I was for 32, or really any other WrestleMania in recent memory. I will say this, though. The build to Mania is a very big important factor, don't get me wrong. But the build to 30 and 31 was really not that good. I think people tend to forget that. I'm just talking about recent years. And the build to 32 I thought was pretty well done too. And the show fucking sucked. The build to 30 and 31 kind of sucked. We would get some really good Raws and a bad Raw, and that was before SmackDown came around as what it is today. So the build was arguably a lot less entertaining week to week. But at the very least, the shows themselves delivered. Two of the best WrestleManias in the last 10 years. So, you be the judge of that in terms of, I don't really think the build matches the show itself. With 29, the build sucked. The show sucked. So that's one instance, I guess. But with 33, I think the card itself is a lot of potential. As Prince 5835 said at the start of the show, the very first question I answered way back when, that the fact that they wait until the very last minute does not do them any favors. But at least a lot of these matches make sense from a storyline standpoint. Like even Shane and AJ, for as much as a lot of people do not want to see it, myself included, at least it makes sense. From a storyline standpoint, they've been building it up. It's not the worst thing ever. AJ could be in a way worse position at WrestleMania. So, yeah, it's been kind of lackluster, but at the same time, I'm still obviously looking forward to it. But the build's been still pretty good, I would say. It's had its ups and downs, peaks and valleys, but no, I would say, with SmackDown, they've had a better build to Mania than Raw, but even Raw has been not that bad. Again, Jericho, Owens, I'm pumped for. Aries, Neville should be fucking amazing. I think that could steal the show if given the right build in the right time at the show itself. So I think that could be a real game changer on that card. Those two matches, the tag title, I don't give a fuck about. Even the women's match, I don't even really give that too big of a shit about, but just because they've really just done so much disservice to that division, I just don't really care anymore. Goldberg, Lesnar's whatever, but I'm looking more forward to it now than I was before the attack they did on Raw last week. So there is something to be said for that. But yeah, no, I think it's kind of in line with last year. But I don't want people to think that, just because the build was awful, the event will be awful too. If you really think it's going to be bad, then it will be bad. But you got to have faith that it's going to be good. Just because 30 and 31, the builds were very, very forgettable. Were really not that good, by and large. Oh, what about Occupy Raw? That was one segment, dude. One segment. It's not like the entire build was amazing. That whole Taker-Brock feud going into Mania 30, the match sucked, but the build was awful too. Like, no one gave a shit. Because the build was so, Taker just pretty much destroyed Lesnar at every turn. And I know Lesnar won the match, and he got the better of Taker in the go-home show, but it's like, oh my god, no one cared. No one cared. Cena Wyatt was, the build was really good, but just the match was not good, so I don't know. Again, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge an event by its build. That's what I would say. The wrestling version of that saying. And the last question, also from the Wrestle Guy from Sal, His question was, if Seth Rollins is still questionable for a full-length match at WrestleMania, do you think a good alternative is Seth Rollins and Finn Balor versus Triple H and Samoa Joe? That way we still get the Triple H Rollins match in some capacity, and it can be easier on Rollins. I don't mind that, but again, with Balor, I just feel like it's such a big return, and then to waste it like either next week or the week after, just to build to a tag team match at Mania, I just don't think it's worth it. I mean, if he comes back in Mania and helps out Rollins taking out Joe and or Triple H, I'd be cool with that. I wouldn't be mad at that at all. I would be completely content with that happening, actually. I do like the idea of Rollins and Balor teaming up to kind of put, to make it easier for Rollins if he can't work a full-length match. But then again, you got to look at it from the storyline standpoint. Why was he on the shelf in the first place? Because it's Seth Rollins, so why would he come back and team with the guy? If you really think about it, I know Rollins is a babyface now, but you got to look at it from that perspective. It doesn't really make much sense. So yeah, what I would just have Triple H and Rollins. Maybe Rollins can't work like a match, but maybe like a street fight, which I think would be better anyway, considering the feud, and I think it would be befitting of the feud, so yeah, I would give him like a no-holds-barred or a street fight disqualification where they can just brawl for like 15-20 minutes. I would be completely content with that. For them to do what they did on Monday night and not deliver a match would be really questionable. That would be really odd. So I would just do a street fight. The tag team match is not the worst idea. I just think, one, it doesn't make much sense for Balor or Rollins to be teaming up at this point without offering some sort of explanation before Balor gets back. And two, I mean, it gets Joe in a prominent match in the card, but I don't know. I think Balor to be rushed back with 2 weeks left before Mania just to be in a match at Mania, I think would just be kind of a waste. So that's my 2 cents on that. But that does it, guys, for hashtag AskGSM here today for March 15th, 2017. One more time, check out Christopher Daniels, the new Ring of Honor World Champion, tomorrow night on Wrestle Rant Radio, in addition to my interview with the Ring of Honor COO, Joe Koff, talking about last week's 15th anniversary show. In another cheap plug, as I said earlier, Lucha Underground is now available on Netflix. Check it out. Great fucking show, especially seasons 1 and 2. So check it out when you can today. I'm off all week on spring break, so if you're like me and you got the week off, you got the day off due to the snow yesterday, binge watch some Lucha Underground. Lucha and chill tonight on Netflix. Netflix and chill Bay watching Lucha Underground. So anyway, guys, thank you per usual for sending your questions. You guys are awesome. We have 2 more episodes left, obviously, until WrestleMania. I was going to say until the WrestleMania episode. But it looks like right now, maybe we'll film one, obviously, the week before I leave, because I'm leaving Friday, March 31st. The show's on Sunday. I'll be at TakeOver Orlando on Saturday, and I'm leaving Monday. I will not be at Raw. I won't even be home for Raw. I will not even watch Raw as it happens, because I'll be up in the air. So, that being said, so we might do like a mini hashtag like that weekend or something, like a special episode for you guys with Jason and I, and maybe we can get other people in on it. I know there's going to be a lot of people down there for the show, so we'll see. But that about does it, guys. Thank you for all your support. You guys are awesome. Thank you for checking the shows, listening to these shows, subscribing to the channel, liking the videos, leaving a comment, sharing the videos. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. And we'll be back next Wednesday with another all-new episode of hashtag AskGSM. But in the meantime, guys, and in between time, have an awesome fucking week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.